This is going to be a film study look at Ben Cleveland. I conducted this video in a very different way from how I normally do film studies, and I'll explain that a little bit more later. Look, this Ravens roster has been constructed in an almost complete way. What I mean by that is complete from the standpoint of being Super Bowl caliber. I'm saying there's very few weaknesses in our starters and rotational players. If you go by position, I think it's possible the interior D line is quite possibly the most talented and deepest group. The safeties aren't far behind, right? They could be ranked even higher depending on what you value or what you think. And I'm going to do a future video about the receiver position, so don't get triggered by that. Ignore that, at least for this video. Where would the O-line be? If everyone is healthy, there's real potential for a highly effective offensive line here, if you ask me. We talked about it a little bit more in a separate video. Where would the 2022 offensive line potentially rank if everyone was healthy and playing, you know, to their ceiling, I guess. There's a lot of depth across this offensive line. Tackle depth is incredibly impressive with Ronnie Stanley, Morgan Moses, Jawan James, and even Patrick McCarry. It goes unsaid, Tyler Linderbaum's reputation. He's going to be a huge upgrade over the previous 4 or 5 years at center, and Kevin Zeitler returning after he looked like our best O-lineman in 2021. The only question mark is left guard. Who fits into that equation? Are the Ravens going to move McCarry over to guard? I don't think so. He might, because he might be needed at tackle, and there's only so much practice time. But who knows? Patrick McCarry is a versatile, smart, and very quick player. He could probably do either of the 5, O-line positions with a week's notice. Well, what about Ben Cleveland? 23 years old. He started the final 4 games of 2021, and this film study is only going to focus on those 4 games. I believe he had suffered a knee injury or maybe an ankle in Week 5 against the Colts. Prior to that overtime game, Cleveland had played an average of 30 snaps per game, I think, in Weeks 2, 3, and 4. After Week 5, he missed 4 weeks in a row, presumably for injury, and then wasn't active at all on offense for the ensuing 4 weeks. So this film study is going to only encompass him at left guard against the Packers, Bengals, Rams, and Steelers in the final 4 starts of the season for him. And even though he was getting, like I said, about an average of 30 snaps a game against the Chiefs, Lions, and Broncos, I think it's quite clear he was probably a vastly different player near the end of his rookie season than he was in the beginning. So we took a real serious look at Cleveland's play in those 4 games at the end of the season with the following questions in our mind. Is he the clear-cut starter at this point at left guard? I'm not sure. It seems like he should be. Tyree Phillips and Ben Powers are experienced. Phillips has played multiple positions wherever the Ravens have needed him to. And Kevin Zeitler's returning at right guard, and we got Tyler Linderbaum at center. Another question. Is Cleveland as bad in pass pro as some people made him out to be? Just so you know, pre-draft in 2021, there was a lot of talk about his unorthodox pass pro technique, somewhat similar to Tyler Smith, who was just drafted by the Cowboys in the first round of the 2022 draft. I think Smith is more of an immediate impact guy, if you ask me. But Cleveland showed some of those traits in the last 4 games, and hopefully I can cover them well for you here. He did show one real glaring inconsistency, or really I should say a habit. I'll cover that later. He had a lot of improvement, we thought, in the Rams game at home in Week 17. It competing against probably one of the best D-lines in the NFL last year. He still had some issues at times. And they definitely targeted him on a few stunts that are very creative, and I hope to cover them later. But look, I think if you put Ben Cleveland between a healthy Ronnie Stanley and Tyler Linderbaum, he's going to benefit from that. It's not that Bozeman wasn't a solid player for us in 2021 at all. He was, for the most part. But Cleveland would benefit greatly from being between 2 of the quickest offensive linemen at their position. And I know Stanley's movement could be impacted by the multiple surgeries, so who knows there. I like how the Ravens have solidified the tackle position, as I kind of talked about before. They have depth there. And to be honest with you, the film was not really clear in certain ways. We did gather 64 plays for the study after watching all 4 games. And quite frankly, there was a lot of good stuff on power and counter and pull schemes, so gap schemes, as well as a little bit of zone-type stuff that we did out of 11 personnel later in the season when Lamar was out, specifically in the Bengals game on the road. First off, when we look at his run plays, he's not dominating NFL-level nose tackles and 3 techniques as a rookie, let's be clear. And I don't look at PFF ratings or any of that stuff. Not for this video and not any of my videos, in case you're new to the channel, to be honest with you. And that's quite intentional, because whatever breakdown or whatever patterns I give you on this channel, I want it to be things that I see with my own eyes watching film. Well, with one caveat. This video, as I mentioned earlier, was done in a different manner. We watched the film, myself and a guy who played at a really high level as an offensive lineman in college. We'll leave it at that for now. And we made some general observations and noted things that Ben Cleveland does well. And some habits or patterns of things that maybe he struggles with in 2021. In the run game, which is this first set of plays you see here, Cleveland's only lined up at left guard, and sometimes he lunges at times. And he'll kind of like lose the point of contact he's aiming for because of the lunge, even for a brief second, and his contact point is off. That doesn't happen as often in the run game as it does in pass pro. Occasionally, he's also stopped his feet before the end of the play, and I think those two things are connected. I mean, the lunging and then not making contact where he wants to, and that thereby his feet are not as stable. And what I mean by that is they're not firing in the same angle or the same rate as if they would be if his upper and lower body were more connected and there was better timing of his contact with the defender. He did have plenty of good blocks in the run game, some of which you see here, and some on RPOs where the quarterback kept it. He was also effective as a pulling guard on some power schemes to the offense's right. If you've watched this channel for any length of time, you know that I refer to the Ravens as a right-handed football team offensively, and I mean that more than most other teams. Yes, I know most quarterbacks are right-handed, just like most people are. I mean in the moments that count, 4th and short or even 3rd and 4, we're a right-handed football team under Greg Roman. And even dating back to 2019, his first year as the offensive coordinator here, and even Lamar's rookie year of 2018, when I know Roman was only like the tight ends coach. But I think Cleveland being used as a puller in those last 4 games was the Ravens trying to see what he can do. And I think he looks for work. We think he looks for work. He wants to attack people and open up running lanes. There's a real aggressive player in there in the run game. We think his technique is still improving because even in the SEC as a 3-year starter, I think he was a 3-year starter, he was overpowering people with his bulk and strength. In the NFL, he'll need improved technique, and I guess I would say better foot persistence. And so what I mean by that is his first steps are generally quite good. Very good in certain cases. But once he got to like steps 5, 6, and 7, the blocking situation in those moments was more dynamic and unplanned. What we thought we saw, and the point that we want to try to make here, is that you can drill your stance in your first steps, your target area, all of that. You can drill that as much as you want, but you need reps, game reps, and experience against other mountainous human beings who can move like the D tackles that Cleveland faced in those 4 games. So what I mean is those dynamic situations at steps 5, 6, and 7 are a little less of a control factor if there's a deficit in athleticism. I'm not necessarily saying that there is for Ben Cleveland. Now, having said that, we were impressed with his pad level on run plays. Cleveland was able to get underneath of certain guys who are like 6'1". He's 6'6" and kind of considered stiff. I think Cleveland's possibly ready for a big season if he's progressed to the point of being a dominant run blocker. His ability to move people when playing at a low pad level was notable. I thought on some of the back blocks, essentially I call a back block when he's blocking away from the point of attack and the backside tackle or the left tackle, in this case Villanueva, was pulling to the right. Anyway, I call that a back block when you're on the back side of the play and not really a down block, which is a front side play. I thought Cleveland takes good angles on his run plays, and he'll be a real asset in the run game, possibly very soon. All right, so now let's take a look at his pass pro, and I will mention some things that you'll see repeatedly in this video that we noticed. He has a tendency to catch sometimes, and we believe that's due to a habit of opening his inside arm, which kind of exposes his chest a little bit. And I think it's connected to his feet in some ways. Now he could get away with this in college. And he does in some cases in the NFL on these plays that we'll show you. But he'll open up his inside arm and hand and allow the D tackle to get like inside hand position. In some cases, he's able to anchor down because he's 6'6", 350 or 360 or so. And he has a few plays that I think we'll show here. Also mentioning another issue, I guess, where he lunges anticipating the contact of the rusher, not necessarily related to that inside hand thing. One of them is an Aaron Donald play a little bit later that's just a freak rush by Aaron Donald that probably defeats at least 2/3 of the left guards in the NFL. But watch some of his play here on pass sets and compare it to Zeitler on the other side. I don't know if you rewind and ever look again, but you're welcome to do that. That's a high bar for a rookie, I know, because Zeitler played at a high level in every season in his career, except for the one season with the Giants. I tried to give you a bunch of plays here from those 4 games to really look at it. And we talked about his pad level earlier on run plays being quite good especially for somebody that size. And I think there's some moments here. Look, what we thought we noticed was he wants to maul people. Ben Cleveland enjoys it. He's, at least we think so. He enjoys mauling people. He enjoys attacking. And therefore, on certain pass plays, he's set up well. Maybe he's in good body position. He's not overcommitted until just before the rusher attacks. And Cleveland will kind of lunge or duck his head at times and lose connection with the defender. Now, we don't think those two issues are related, the one that I just mentioned and the inside hand thing. And those are not things that we believe are occurring on, 20, 30% of his pass sets. Don't get me wrong. But it probably happened, I'd say, 4 times over the course of those 4, maybe 6 times over the course of those 4 games. And I think I showed 2 of them here. So technically, we think there's some improvements to make in pass pro, more improvements to make in pass pro than in the run game. And that's not surprising, right? But he also has some other things we noticed that we think can be easily fixed. On some play action stuff, he didn't really sell the run nearly as well as Zeitler. And maybe we noted it 3 times across the 64 plays that were charted. I would say Cleveland's better at pass blocking than we suspected, with a few exceptions, and maybe not as dominant as a run blocker as we expected. So I don't know how you categorize that. I thought the Rams did target him on some stunts, and they did so in a creative way. They occupied the center with the nose tackle and then crossed Donald over to pick him. And really, Aaron Donald ends up decleating Ben Cleveland. You'll see it a little bit later. And it frees up the guy that Cleveland was engaged with or about to engage for a quarterback sack. It happened twice in that game, I believe, and once it happened, to great effect. Look, Ben Cleveland's 23. He's played 4 years against high-level competition in the SEC. I think 3 years as a starter. I think he even played in a national championship game. Coming off a rookie season where he had definitely a knee or ankle injury in the Colts game, and I thought I remembered a concussion issue in the preseason as well. I think the film from these 4 games, which was 262 snaps, so that's a lot of experience, by the way, it showed a guy pretty far along in his development for having missed 8 weeks in a row on the offensive side. He did play some special teams, I believe, in the last 4 weeks where he didn't play any offense. And he played against some good defensive fronts in this video. If you ask me from a D-line or interior D-line standpoint, this might have been the best 4 teams, for him to face, especially at the end of his rookie season. Give the Ravens a real good evaluation of what he does well and what he needs to work on. Now I want to make sure I'm clear with the inside hand thing that I mentioned earlier in pass pro. I'm not talking about situations like this where the Packers line up 2 inside linebackers up on the line of scrimmage, almost threatening like that cover 0 type blitz that really plagued the Ravens all last year. And he's got to use his inside arm to maybe help the center with the shade or the 1 technique, which is number 94 here. I feel like he's got pretty good awareness of when to pass people off, and I mean that in the passing game or the running game, when to pass off a D tackle who's rushing in a particular lane, and he understands how the scheme is supposed to work, so he'll allow that guy to work back to the center and then look for some work. Now, having said that I think he has a pretty high awareness level, and I think the film shows some of this. There's some situations where some of these stunts really got to him, and I think the next one that the Rams do is pretty unique. Well, what they do is they occupy the center with number 91, I think is Grimes, and then they utilize Donald and number 94 to essentially pick or decleat Ben Cleveland, the one that I've talked about twice before. Donald's on our left. He's going to come across the formation underneath of the center because 91's kind of slow playing this, intentionally allowing Donald to cross underneath or behind the center. Really neat way to run a pick scheme with the defensive line, and you can see it knocks Cleveland to the ground, frees up 94 for an easy sack. But does it mean there's something wrong with Ben Cleveland? No, it's just a mental mistake of something he's never seen before, or at least not seen it with that level of tenacity and efficiency. Now, this one here against Aaron Donald's a little bit different. He's going to lunge a little bit right before contact, and you can see he's leaning forward, and Donald is taking his right arm, which is unforeseen to us, and he's knocking Cleveland's left side of his body down to break his posture and then be able to rip past him and get a QB hit. Or at least a pressure, I should say. Look, having reps against Aaron Donald on film is not a bad thing. I don't know about you. I'm certainly glad the Ravens devoted a 3rd-round pick in the 2021 draft to him. I think it's, obviously it's an option to move Mekari over there. He's always available to help at any position. Think about it this way. Mekari at left guard, Linderbaum at center, and Zeitler at right guard in a zone or a stretch scheme. That's intriguing, right? They're both really quick. Those two, Mekari and Linderbaum, and Zeitler's just smooth and smart and strong enough to get the job done. They would be very efficient, probably as quick and athletic as any interior O-line in the AFC at least. So I think from that standpoint, it might show us what type of scheme we're moving to or not moving to if they do move Mekari to guard. So from a planning standpoint, Mekari to guard could mean more zone or stretch stuff. Mekari not going to guard and leaving Cleveland there to presumably be the starter could mean that we're going to stay in more gap schemes. Now, I think Cleveland can execute on the backside of zone or stretch schemes. I think there's some film of him trying to do it here and in college. But look, this is the NFL. There's no way we go into 2022, or at least go through it, with a very good O-line, and that's what we have, and don't utilize effective gap and zone schemes to complement our players. Our O-line last year was really among the bottom 6 or 8 in the league. I think Cleveland looks like he's capable of competing against high-level guys. His film against the Rams, he had some good moments and some poor ones. But that experience, I think, will only make him better. For as much time as he's missed, again, he didn't play an offensive snap from week 6 through week 14. I thought his play in the last month showed a lot of promise. And he'll have a chance to be a part of a special O-line, in my opinion, if Ronnie Stanley is anything close to 100% of his pre-injury self, and if Tyler Linderbaum lives up to 90% of his projection, this could be a very special offensive line. Now, having said that, I think it's obvious that left guard is the position of the most interest, or perhaps scrutiny. Who's going to start? Do they move Mekari or not? I want to know what you think of Ben Cleveland. Is he a starter automatically? I think me personally, I think he's got a fight on his hands with someone. Maybe it's Tyree Phillips. And Phillips is experienced, but I think Cleveland has more upside. Mekari moving to guard will be a different kind of battle because Mekari's been on the field against some really tough teams, and the Ravens coaches trust him. And finally, do you think that Cleveland has the technique yet to be a high-level left guard? I think he's got the bulk, the strength, the ability to move people. Do you perceive him as a weak point of what could be, in my opinion, a top 10 or top 5 O-line if everyone is healthy and Linderbaum is as advertised? To me, I think Cleveland projects as someone who could explode into a physically dominant player at some point. I just don't know if it'll be year 2 or not. Even though on film I was more impressed with Cleveland than I thought, I still think it's entirely possible the Ravens move Mekari there to create some real competition and try to get the best possible experienced group of offensive linemen out there on the field that they can. Let me know what you think of the video. Again, I didn't break down probably as high a percent of plays as typical. I probably only broke down 4 or 5 plays in detail here for you. This summary was more so based upon the dual film watching and conversations that I had with someone that helped me prepare this video and do the back-end study in terms of the film. The next 2, or actually 3 guys that are up in terms of a study like this is going to be Mekari and Linderbaum. I'm not going to be able to show film of Linderbaum in college. And then we're also taking a look at the Raiders left tackle Kolton Miller. Let me know if you guys appreciate this type of video and scrutiny of offensive line guys in the NFL.